Hey friends, I have some vintage Americana tier tray and dough bowl fillers you're not going to want to miss, so come on in. I'm Sarah, and welcome to my channel, Primrose and Prims. I hope you'll stick around for a while by hitting that subscribe button. And now, let's get right into that DIY. To start off this DIY, I'm going to be using one of these wood crates from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to give it one good coat of Waverly white chalk paint. I'm only going to be painting the outside of this because the inside is actually going to be used upside down. We're going to be making a faux book stack here, so you won't see that bottom underneath there. Next, I'm going to take my Waverly Antique Wax and I'm going to start dry brushing this on to distress it because, of course, this is a vintage piece. We want it to look old, we want it to look distressed. So I'm going to focus on my hard edges because when you see a piece that has been worn by time, it's always around the edges that seems to have aged the most. So really want to focus on those hard edges and the cracks in between what would be the boards or the books of this little wood crate. Once it's dry, I'm going to take this star fabric that I have, and now I'm not sure where this originally came from. It's some that I've had. I think my sweet sister-in-law gave it to me originally, but I'm going to take about a 1-inch strip of this and I'm just going to wrap it around my little crate as you see here, kind of like you would a present, ending up on the top and then tying it off in a knot. Of course, you can use the Americana fabric of your choice. Walmart has some really cute fat quarters and stuff that you can get this time of year. Maybe you have some already in your stash or a ribbon you like to use. Once I have this tied up, I'm just going to clip up the excess by dovetailing the ends here. And then I'm going to save these scraps because we'll be using some of these pieces a little bit later too in another DIY. Next, I'm just going to take some plain printer paper here and I'm going to, with a fine tip Sharpie marker, I'm just going to freehand the words "Land That I Love." Now, before I started writing, I took my paper and I held it up to my crate and I kind of used my finger just to press slightly and make an indentation in the paper of where the creases in the crate were. So that way I could get a perfect size for my letters. Once I made sure everything was lining up the way I wanted it to, I'm going to go back over it again with my Sharpie marker just to make those letters a little bit darker. Now, if you have a Cricut, you could also use a Cricut. You could just paint the words on if you wanted to, but I kind of want to make this look like parchment paper that was on the edge of these books. Old, faded. I kind of like the handwritten, hand touch to the vintage stuff. It kind of gives it that personalization that you only get with using a human hand. Now that I have my words wrote out the way I want them, I'm just going to take and I'm going to cut these apart. And using a damp paper towel, I'm just going to go right around the edges, dampen the paper, and use my fingers to just pull this slightly to give the edge of that paper that aged parchment look. And once I have that done, I'm going to take my Waverly Antique Wax and then I'm going to go around the edges and over all of this paper to give it that yellow vintage paper look. So as you can see, these are going to fit right here on the edge of our books. Our little faux book stack, I should say. Now to attach these, I'm going to use some Mod Podge, and I'm just going to brush some on, put my pieces of paper in it, and then when I'm finished, I will go back over the top of each one again with Mod Podge to seal it in. These little faux book stacks are the perfect, these little crates are the perfect size to pop in a tiered tray. You can make them for all different seasons. Now, the last touch I want to do is take one of these little paper tags. Now I get these from Amazon. You can get like a whole bunch of them really inexpensively. I'll leave a link down below. But I'm going to once again take my fine tip Sharpie marker and I'm just going to spell out USA. If you don't have these paper tags and you don't want to buy them, you could make your own using cardstock and ink or antique wax to vintage them up. I'm going to take and crumple mine up here so it looks nice and old and wrinkly, and then once again use my antique wax to go around the edges and around it to give it that aged vintage look. Once I have it distressed to my liking, I'm just going to use a little bit of hot glue and I'm going to glue it right here to the top, right underneath my knot on the top of my faux book stack. And here we go. Put it on a shelf, pop it in your tiered tray, and it's perfect for the 4th of July. For this DIY, I'm going to be using these old traditional style clothespins. Now you can get these, I get mine off of Amazon. I'll leave a link down below, but you can get a large pack of them pretty inexpensively. Using my Waverly Antique Wax, I'm just going to use my sponge brush and I'm going to go over these just to give them that stained, weathered look. Once that is done, we're going to go in and take our fabric. Now this is another Americana fabric that I've had. It says Old Glory, America on it. I also have this flag fabric again that I'll be using, as well as a red, white, and blue striped fabric. I'm going to cut my fabric into about 1-inch strips and I'm going to cut it about 15 inches long approximately. And I'm going to hot glue it on and just wrap it around the center of my clothespins here. Secure it down with a little bit of hot glue. Now I'm going to take my different fabrics and I'm going to make a couple of these in each one of the fabrics that I have. These clothespins look adorable in a little dough bowl with some potpourri. They also look cute in a tiered tray. They're just so rustic and cute. Once I have all of my clothespins wrapped with my fabric, I'm going to take this thinner jute twine that I have, and I'm just going to wrap it right around the center, just a few good times right in the middle of the fabric, and then tie it off with a knot. This is such a fun, simple, cute way to add a little touch to the 4th of July in your home. Now this DIY is a super easy, simple one. It's using these little foam balls. These I get from Amazon, but you could also get these from the Dollar Tree. I think they come like 3 in a pack at the Dollar Tree. And I'm once again going to use my same fabrics that I use for my clothespins. And as you can guess, yes, we're just gonna make some simple rag balls to decorate with. My fabric, like I said, I cut in about 3/4 to 1 inch strips. You don't really want to go much bigger than that, or else it can leave edges hanging over and look not quite as finished or neat. But I like to glue my fabric at the top and the bottom of the ball to hold it in place. Start wrapping it around, and with each rotation, your fabric's just going to move over just slightly so that it continues to go around and cover your styrofoam ball. It's nothing like, I think when I think of vintage and primitive farmhouse, I always think of rag balls. There's always a little bowl of rag balls somewhere. Once again, these are just a cute way. You can do these for different seasons, and just a really fun way to add a little bit of festivities to your, 4th of July decorating. I love to decorate for the 4th of July personally. We always go all out for the 4th of July. We always have a barbecue. We have friends and family over. All the kids play. We barbecue. We have s'mores. We do fireworks. It's always a big event and a lot of fun here at our house. Leave me a comment. Let me know how you all celebrate the 4th of July. What are some of your traditions and customs that you do? Here's what these look like when they're done. And I'm going to do a ball, at least one in each of the different fabrics. I love this flag fabric. It looks so pretty on these little rag balls. And if you're enjoying this video so far, I hope you'll consider giving it a like. And if you haven't done so already, I hope maybe you'll consider subscribing so you'll craft with me in the future for more fun, budget-friendly DIYs around the home. For this last DIY, I'm going to be using some of these Dollar Tree wood Jingle Blocks. Now you could just use scrap wood if you have them, or if you have find a real Jingle block, maybe at a thrift store. You could use those too. Any of it'll work. But these are what I have on hand, and they're the perfect size. I'm going to be using Waverly's white chalk paint as well as Waverly's chalk paint in the color Crimson. And then I'm also going to be using a blue, I believe it's called Admiral Blue or Navy Blue, I can't remember, from Apple Barrel. And I'm going to give each one of these one a coat of white, one a coat of red, and one a coat of blue. I love this blue paint for Patriotic crafts. It is just the perfect shade of blue for doing patriotic Americana style crafts. I'm absolutely in love with this color. Once these are dry, I'm going to take a piece of sandpaper and I'm just going to sand around the edges. I'm going to focus on the corners and the edges and give this a nice rustic primitive look. It's kind of hard to see on the white one, so it's not showing up on camera very well right now, but you'll see more when I do the red and the blue one, exactly how I'm sanding them. Just scuff up the paint a little bit, give them that nice vintage look. Here you can see a little better how I'm doing it. Just focusing on those edges. Maybe even give the edges a slightly rounded a little bit feature. Dulls the paint a little bit. Give it that nice faded look. Now that we have these sanded, I'm going to go in with my Waverly Antique Wax and I'm just going to lightly dry brush right over top of these. I want to make sure I get all of the places I sanded to give that wood that aged, stained vintage look, and it darkens the paint slightly. Look how gorgeous this blue turns out. And I'm just doing a really light coat of the Waverly. You'll see I blot it here on the edge because I don't want to get too much. I just a small amount, just enough to tint the wood and the paint. These are going to be little miniature firecrackers, if you haven't guessed already what we are making. So the next thing a firecracker needs is it needs a wick. So I'm going to be taking this jute cord and I'm going to cut off about an inch and a half, and I'm going to tie a small knot right in the bottom and then trim off any extra that's hanging over from where you took the knot. And this is going to be our little firecracker wick, where you would light the firecracker. So I'm just going to use a little dab of hot glue and glue this right to the top. Now I'm going to go back to my fabrics again, and I think for this one I'm going to use the flag fabric. It seems to be my favorite. It seems to be the one that looks the best with these little firecrackers, and I'm just going to cut really thin little strips out of this little scrap piece that I had left over. once I get these little scrap pieces, I'm just going to tie it into a knot right in the center. It's just going to act as a teeny tiny little bow to go on the top of our little firecracker. These are fancy firecrackers. Our firecrackers are so fancy they have bows. A little hot glue and secure them right on there. Now, to go with our fabric, I'm going to take another little piece of this twine and I'm going to break it apart. It's one of the thicker jute twines, so you can easily spread those fibers apart. And I'm going to take 2 of them, crisscross over each other, wrap one around, and then tie it off. And it'll kind of make a small little X. And I'm going to take this and we're going to hot glue our little twine pieces here right on top of the fabric to complete our little firecracker bow. Now these little guys are cute as they are here, but I want to take it one step further and I'm going to break out my little alphabet stamp letters. This is from Amazon. And I am going to use my black ink and I'm going to stamp the words boom, bang, and pop. Because what are the words you think of with a firecracker? Boom, bang, and pop. That's what they do. And I'm just going to lightly stamp this. I don't want it too dark. I still want it to have that faded vintage look. So I'm just going to lightly stamp it on there. Now you could also stamp on red, white, and blue. You could stamp on other things. I was just going with the boom, bang, and pop because that just seems to go with what a firecracker would do. Look how cute these are. Pop them in your tiered tray or in your little dough bowl and add a little bit of firecracker to your 4th of July decorating. So that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, I hope you'll consider giving it a like, maybe share it with your friends, and if you haven't done so already, I hope you'll consider hitting that subscribe button so you don't miss any future fun and easy budget-friendly DIYs for around the home. And until next time, happy crafting, friends.